Hello everyone and welcome back to 7th Circle Gaming. Today on the channel we're talking about Valkyria Chronicles 4. And we'll start off as we always do with full disclosure. Pause the video now if you like and read through these. And let's move on to Immersion. So, for Immersion, the game has earned a 10 out of 15. What's it going to do to try to get the player invested into the game world? What methods is it going to use? One of the methods that the game is going to use is challenge. Each map or mission represents a tactical challenge on multiple levels. Not only is there simply overcoming the opposition, but there's also managing the interpersonal relationships of the soldiers or the NPCs rather, that the player commands, and deciding what the best skills to bring to that particular map are, or what are primary objectives, what are maybe secondary objectives. In addition, the game is going to attempt to get players invested in the game world with the story. All of the missions are tied together by a larger plot told through cutscenes. There's also character interactions that are available because the game really tries to make all of these different characters real NPCs real characters with voice lines and a list of characteristics about all of them. The game is also going to attempt to use presentation. It's told through in a third-person style, sort of. There's also a map overview. The art style in general could be described as cel-shaded, but it's anime-type characters. In addition to that, the game is going to attempt to use player agency to get players invested in the game world. There are upgrades that are class-centric, not individual-centric, but there are some individual NPCs that upgrade or adjust their characteristics in certain ways depending on who they are paired with or who they are not paired with. There is some customization of individual NPCs or squad members possible, but that unlocks fairly slowly throughout the game. So, before we move on to difficulty, we're going to show off a couple of screenshots. The first one is just the character action screen, for want of a better phrase. Once players select a character that they want to use for a particular turn, and this is what they're going to see. And the user interface is very minimalistic. There's just a couple of things to look at. In the upper left-hand corner are the hit points of the target the cursor is currently looking at, or the character is currently looking at. On the bottom right is some data about the character the player is controlling, and then in the middle of the screen is where the player can see what their movement range is. It's all pretty easily understandable, pretty reasonable. There is actually a fairly complete tutorial for all this, so let's move on and show off the second of our screenshots. These are the story cutscenes that we talked about in Immersion. This is just one of them. I've tried to find one that doesn't reveal too much about the story, but also tries to point out the kind of story that we're looking at. It is kind of a typical war story, but also not. And the speed through which players progress through these cutscenes can be adjusted in the options menu, but that's neither here nor there. It will affect some players more than others. And let's move on, because there isn't much more to say about Immersion, to difficulty. Unfortunately, the game has earned a 1 out of 15 for difficulty. There really are only two options at the start of the game, easy and normal. How those affect gameplay isn't described in any way whatsoever. Players are just expected to discover that as they play through the game. We're actually going to show off, just in case you didn't believe us, the actual difficulty screen right here. Now, it can be changed throughout the campaign, at the start of any mission, or presumably during a mission. So that is one point in its favor, but that's really where it is. That's all there is to it. And it doesn't seem, even though we did look through the options menu, that there are options that could affect the difficulty in any way. The user interface is very standard, and neither playing with a gamepad or a keyboard really seem to affect difficulty in any negative way. So let's move on, because we do want to get off of difficulty and move on to lasting appeal. What is going to keep players playing through the game, or keeping it installed on their hard drives and trying through the game again? The game is earning an 8 out of 15 for lasting appeal. It's possible that players will want to play through the game again, or try different combinations of upgrades and squad members as they play through the game, maybe restart. It's possible that players will want to try to obtain higher scores, get medals on each mission. It's also potentially worth playing through the game a second time or a third time, just to experience the uniqueness of the Valkyria Chronicles. Some players will be very interested in the story and playing through it again with different characters. That's a little bit of a lighter reason to play through the game. It's an Achilles heel, if you will, of a lot of story-based games, where once players understand where the story is going, it really doesn't make any sense to play through it a second time. On the other hand, players may want to play through the game again simply because of the seeming ease of play. The tactics are not nearly as involved as some other games of the genre might be. And there are characters that players may find themselves liking more than others. The game really tries, to its credit, to make each NPC an individual to the player. It's going to do that with audio clips and describing the character, as we talked about in the Immersion section. So, with all of that said, where does the game stand? It sounds like we've made this game out to be really fantastic. Well, the game has scored a 6.3 out of 15 overall. The difficulty is not very well described at all, as we saw earlier. It does work reasonably well with keyboard or gamepad. Some players will find the story immersive. They will find the uniqueness of the game particularly immersive. That's really what, or to guess, what drives up the overall score for the game. The ease of playthrough and the potential for trying it again, trying different tactics, or to try, although we didn't mention this, to try to over-level these different combinations that they can work out. So, some players, I will just add, may believe that this game is more worthy of a 7 out of 15, but for the average player, it is really only worth that 6.3 out of 15. And since that's all there really is to say about Valkyria Chronicles 4 from us here at Seventh Circle Gaming, congratulations, you've reached the end of the video. Do all the YouTube things, and goodbye.